The name of Mocollop means the plain of the cattle. The history of the castle is the story of the Norman invasion and colonisation of Ireland. Dermot MacMurrough, the deposed King of Leinster, invited the Normans to Ireland in 1167. Yet they had an interest in the country since at least 1155. In that year, the only English Pope, Adrian IV, granted a papal bull allowing the Normans to invade and conquer Ireland. Adrian IV was a good friend of King Henry II of England. Bannow Island on the south Wexford coast was the site of the first landing in 1169, and in the following year the main invasion force arrived. Shortly after Waterford city fell to the Normans, and it was here that Richard de Clare, Earl of Stirgold and known as Strongbow, married Eva, the daughter of Dermot MacMurrough. The Normans quickly advanced across the present-day county of Waterford, known then as the Kingdom of the Dacia. King Henry II arrived in Ireland in 1171 to establish his authority over the Norman lords and to receive submissions from the Irish kings. In the course of his travels around the country, he visited Lismore for talks with the Bishop of Lismore, who was then the papal legate to Ireland. It is unlikely that a castle stood at Mocollop in 1171. When Raymond Le Gros Fitzgerald sacked Lismore in 1173 in order to get funds to pay his troops, no impression is given for the existence of Mocollop Castle. In 1175, 1 year after Strongbow suffered a heavy defeat at Thurles, the Normans had sufficiently recovered their position to declare all the land between Waterford and Dungarvan as Crown land. 2 years later, in 1177, this area was extended as far as Lismore. It is possible that some structure was built at Mocollop around 1185. If such was the case, the building would be of timber, and any trace of it would lie within the foundations of the present-day castle. This timber castle would have lasted for a number of years, and it was not replaced by a stone building until about 1220. The core of Mocollop Castle, built in 1220, is its circular keep. Most castles of this period, around the end of the 12th century, had a square keep as the principal tower. The circular keep is more rare and rather unique. Such towers are known as donjons and originated in France in the late 12th century. The gateway of Mocollop had a drawbridge with a portcullis behind. A timber causeway led away from the drawbridge towards the modern road. It is possible that the course of the Blackwater was slightly altered to provide a watery moat around Mocollop Castle. Finding out who owned Mocollop Castle for the first 50 years as a stone castle is as yet beyond ability to find out. It is known that Sir Robert Le Poer held County Waterford in the 1180s, which included Mocollop, and that the Power family continued to own property in the area up to at least 1329. In 1298, Mocollop was transferred to Sir John de Barry of Castlelyons. Sometime between 1456 and 1460, Ellis, daughter of William de Barry, the 8th Baron of Barrymore, married Thomas Fitzjames Fitzgerald, eldest son of James Fitzgerald, the 7th Earl of Desmond. By the terms of the marriage, a nice dowry came to the Fitzgeralds. The manors and property of Conna, Cooldarra, Ballytrasna and Mocollop was now a fact. James, the 7th Earl of Desmond, lost no time in developing the castle. Thomas Fitzgerald was very interested in the rebuilding of Mocollop and died there in 1462. He was buried in South Abbey at Youghal, site of the present Presentation Convent. Thomas Fitzgerald, the eldest son, then became the 8th Earl of Desmond. The Fitzgeralds were like other landlords and enjoyed the pleasures of their estate income. Other people actually did the day-to-day working at Mocollop. In 1586, Sir Walter Raleigh got 42,000 acres stretching from Youghal to Cappoquin and onto Lismore, with land along the River Bride, including Tallow, Lisfinny, Magilly and Conna. In 1595, Hugh O'Neill began what became known as the 9 Years' War. The war took off in Munster in 1597. Mr. Duff lost Sheanmore Tower House to the Shean Fitzgeralds, while James Fitzmaurice Fitzgerald recovered the ancestral home of Mocollop Castle. Famine, plague and lawlessness spread across Munster as the English recovered the captured castles. They gave pardons to many Irish lords to speed up the process of recapture. On the 26th of January 1602, a pardon was granted to James Fitzmaurice Fitzgerald of Mocollop. On the 7th of December 1602, Sir Walter Raleigh sold his entire Irish estate to Sir Richard Boyle for £1,500. Later in November 1603, Raleigh was charged with treason, and so Boyle got further rights, including the fishing on the Blackwater River from Glenmore near Mocollop to Youghal. It would appear that towards the end of 1641, James Fitzgerald had assembled a small military force with which he took but could not hold Mocollop Castle in 1642. It is around this time that we last heard of James Fitzgerald. It seems he retired for warfare following the loss of Mocollop and came to live in his thatched house in the parish of Leitrim. The English Civil War ended in early 1649 with the execution of King Charles I. The chief parliamentary commander, Oliver Cromwell, was now free to bring his battle-hardened soldiers to Ireland. After hard-fought victories at Drogheda, Wexford and Waterford, Cromwell rested over the winter of 1649 to 1650 at Youghal. Cromwell's forces advanced on the castle sometime over those winter months. The Cromwellian forces established a gun battery at Ballinaroon on the south side of the river, from where they shelled Mocollop Castle. To prevent reoccupation by Irish or Royalist forces, the Cromwellians destroyed the round keep by removing the east-facing wall. Colonel Thomas Monsell held Mocollop and was living there in 1659 with his eldest son, also called Thomas. Colonel Thomas Monsell died on the 13th of March 1687 and was buried at Mocollop Church Graveyard. His eldest son, Thomas Monsell, took over Mocollop, but soon sold it to George Jackson before he died in 1692. George Jackson sold it to George Drew of Kilwinny near Tallow, a great-grandson of Francis Drew, a soldier in Queen Elizabeth's Irish Army. George Drew left no children, and his sister Margaret inherited Mocollop. She married her cousin John Drew of Ballyduff. It is from this marriage that the later Drew family of Mocollop is descended. This John Drew died around 1749 while living at the old courthouse in Water Park across the river from Mocollop. The Mocollop house built by Colonel Monsell was replaced with the present Georgian house by John Drew or his son Francis before 1787. A later north wing that was 3 times the size of the present structure was subsequently built. This large wing was knocked down in the late 1940s or the early 1950s to avoid a big rates bill. The towers and buildings of the old castle were turned into farm buildings, while the round keep became a coach house. This could have occurred in 1826, as a portrait of Richard Monsell and his wife with some military stores was found in that year concealed in the castle. The coach house was removed in the early 20th century. Today, the castle protects the scenic views of the Blackwater Valley.